Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you're listening. Welcome to Way Outta Here, the Philly Sports Podcast with fan perspective from way outside the greater Philadelphia area. My name is Steve Prudente, here with you as always, coming in on a special edition again, checking in the morning after the Flyers vanquished the Pittsburgh Penguins in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, advancing into the second round for the first time since 2020. An incredibly exciting series. It probably got a little bit closer than it should have, all things considered, but really things didn't go the way that we planned, really, I guess, most of this year, and especially towards the end. I plan to do a full recap pod, and also we'll check in on what's going on with the Sixers here over the next couple of days in my actual studio, like a regular episode, but I wanted to check in this morning with a couple of gut reaction thoughts, and also I just happen to be in a position where I'm going to hear some commentary from the opposing side of this, being that I live inside hostile territory. You might be a little surprised that the media here sometimes doesn't always echo the sentiments of the fan base, and I think so far what I've been hearing is that a lot of the media, aside from guys like Mark Madden, who have some hot takes and things like that, are giving the Flyers a decent amount of credit, and also understanding that this is a Pittsburgh Penguins team that is old. They needed to make some changes. They had one more kick at the can, and this is the result. You know, you had a little bit of fun on the way, made the playoffs, won a couple of games, had some interesting times, but ultimately this is not going to bring you back to the Stanley Cup. I mean, that ship has pretty much sailed. And so I'm going to take a listen here on the radio, let you guys hear a little bit of it, and I will react as I did before. And then over the next couple of days, I will get in the studio and have a full reaction as well. Like I said, I want to check in on what's been going on with the Sixers there at 3-2, down to the Boston Celtics, but with Game 6 coming up tonight, so a lot of excitement there as well. So let's check in. This is WDVE 102.5 here in Pittsburgh on the morning show with some of the opposition territory on the morning after a thrilling Flyers victory in 6 games over the Pittsburgh Penguins.
On the Penguin zone, Dean's top far circle with 2.5 to play in OT. High slot, hand yard, wrister, they score. The Philadelphia Flyers in this series in 6 games with the only goal of Game 6. It's an overtime winner, and the Penguins season comes to an end.
With homage to Nick Picone on Twitter. That's what it sounds like from the opposite side.
And we are licking our wounds this morning to help us break it down and look ahead to what happens next. Please welcome fellow metalhead and from the Penguins Radio Network on our brother station, 105.9 The X. It's Brian Metzer. Metz, let's start with the positive. How about this? Oh my Sheloffs.
He was good.
Yeah, I would say that's a good way to go. Well, one positive, though, before we get into that, you and I are probably the only 2 people that have an avid snow globe, so let's get that out of the way.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was outstanding. You can't beat him up for last night at all.
No.
He has had his deficiencies from time to time, but he gave the Penguins every opportunity to win the game last night, and that's what made it such a heartbreaker for him, especially seeing that video of Sid going over and consoling him after the game. And it was in stark contrast to what we saw the game before, when he goes over and essentially whispers to him, and they picked it up on their cameras, we're not done yet, that kind of thing. So Artie Shiloh's probably solidified himself as a big piece of the Penguins' goaltending combination moving at least into next year and maybe even beyond that. But I thought he was so solid, and I wish that a couple of the changes that Dan Muse made going into the section of the series in which the Penguins started to look like themselves had happened earlier, because you changed your lineup, you put him in.
Yeah.
No knock on Skinner, because he
bad
played
coaching
pretty well, but he let up a couple goals that make you raise an eyebrow. Chilos was really good for them and gave them a chance.
Mets, as we look ahead now, coming out of a season that began with very limited, if any, expectation, they get to the playoffs and they showed some heart coming back and pushing it to 6 games. But I'm not real sure what the roster looks like next season. Do you still see this as very much a work in progress for Kyle Dubas?
Yeah, we ended it.
Yeah, I do, Mike. I think that
we ended it.
You're lucky you're not him right now, because you got to make a very tough decision with Evgeny Malkin. That's one that's going to be polarizing as can be. The fan base is going to beat you up pretty much no matter which way you go.
Yeah, run it back.
There's big swatches of people that say move them on, including some people on our sister stations right here in the city that talk about it on a near daily basis. And then there's a big section of the fan base that loves Gino and wants to keep him, and rightly so, only because, he's been here so long and change is very difficult. But that's the big piece, first of all, you got to decide on. I don't think guys like Anthony Mantha will be back. Gino, again.
No, bring him back too.
Area. There's two that you probably want to lock in. He already did one piece of that fourth line a little while back, signing Blake Lizotte. I think Noel Acciari and Connor Dewar aren't going to come very expensive, and it would be worth considering keeping them. But he has a lot of cap space at his disposal, and there was a lot of talk that this summer would be one in which he might make a couple of big swings, because he did accumulate all of those assets in terms of draft picks. He has the cap space, and he has, some young players, too, that they would like to get a regular role in the NHL. And dare I say, maybe next year ends up being a little more similar to what we thought this one was going to be, simply based on the fact that if you do go with the youth movement, they're going to have their growing pains, and it's not always going to go the way you want. But, yeah, I think a work in progress for sure, just based on the fact that you do have those UFAs to contend with. But there are pieces of the roster that people don't like that are locked in, and it won't be easy to move from the situation. I mean, people want Chris Letang gone. He can't. I mean, he's here through 27, 28. $6.1 million.
Dude, he was bad.
Eat up a little bit of a chunk on the blue line, and still
don't let the fluky goal fool you.
Expect to play. So again,
bring him back.
I don't want to be Kyle Dubas right now, but I do think it is a work in progress. There's some tough decisions to be made, but some latitude in which he can maybe make some significant changes.
I'm pretty familiar with what they've got in the NCAA ranks percolating. Who's knocking on the door from Wilkes-Barre other than the goalie?
Well, I know you.
I paused for a bit because they started getting a little bit more into minor league type stuff. So there's some of the inside perspective from the Pittsburgh media on what kind of happened in the series, and what the outlook, I guess, is looking forward to their roster makeup over the next couple of years, and acknowledging that what a lot of us have said, yeah, they are kind of cooked, and this was the last kick at the can. Time to move on, and really bringing this back to the Flyers' perspective. I know the Penguins have some hardware, but which position would you rather be in with your team? Where the Penguins are making a transition from, they've not even started the rebuild, technically. I mean, they've maybe transitioned a little bit over the last few years, but they're still trying to get themselves right into the next era. The Flyers' next era is here. And granted, we have lived through a lot of shit the last decade plus since the Paul Holmgren era started to fall out, maybe after 2012. But I feel so much better being where we are right now, optimistic, and making the playoffs the season was already a success, and anything after that is just gravy. Winning a series was already gravy. This is beyond house money, playing against Carolina, which I'll get into on my full preview. But I just am so grateful that we're finally in this position, as opposed to where the Penguins are, where they've got a very murky road ahead, and that's the fallout. With every front, there is a back. They had all that winning for so many years, and now they're faced with something that's completely different and foreign. We've been there as Philly sports fans as well, so I'm not exactly playing the violin for them by no means. But at any rate, I wanted to check in with you guys. I have so many more thoughts on this series. As I said, I'm going to try to check in with you guys over the next couple of days, at least this weekend. We'll see what happens with the Sixers series tonight as they play the Boston Celtics at home in South Philly. If any of you guys are going down there, I hope the weather's a little bit more cooperative today than it was yesterday. I know the Phillies got rained out, and they're playing a doubleheader, and there was supposed to be a nice block party for the Flyers playoff game yesterday, but it didn't happen necessarily the way that everybody wanted with all that nasty weather. So hopefully it's a little bit better, and we get that true playoff atmosphere back again down in South Philly tonight. And there will be at least 2 more Flyers games coming up in round 2. We know that much. So I'm pretty excited for that. All right. That's all for now. Thank you guys for listening. If you don't already, subscribe to me on the social media platform of your choice on Facebook and Instagram, Way Outta Here Podcast. On Blue Sky, Way Outta Here Pod. On the blog, wayoutaherepodcast.blogspot.com. If you got any feedback, please send an email to wayoutaherepodcast sixers@gmail.com. I'm available wherever you get your podcasts. On Apple and Spotify, a rating would be fantastic, and on Apple, a review would be even better. Thank you so much. I will talk to you guys soon. Until next time, be safe, and whatever it is that you do, go Sixers, and of course, go Flyers!